This training is made possible by a grant from the Utah State Charter School Board. On behalf of the Utah Association for Public Charter Schools, welcome to this brief training on school fees. We will cover the 5 whys of Administrative Rule R277-407 entitled School Fees. This training will answer who is subject to this rule, what are the definitions of fees, when the reports are due, where information must be posted, why the rule is important, and a whole lot more. As a bonus, we will teach you how to comply with this rule, its associated statute, and the guiding permanent injunction. To whom does this rule apply? All LEAs and schools in the state are subject to R277-407. There are elements of the rule and corresponding statute and injunction which apply to all public schools regardless of the grade level served, configuration, fee schedule, or type. If you are a publicly funded school, you are subject to this rule. Even if you don't assess fees, your school is subject to parts of this rule. Who oversees fees at each LEA or school? Primarily, the local school board is responsible for fees. The board shall annually adopt or review the provisions of the school's fee policy and adopt a fee schedule and spend plan. However, the rule stipulates that the board delegates the actual oversight of fees to a school employee. The principal or school director in each school shall designate at least one person at the appropriate administrative level to act as the fee waiver administrator. The director or principal may be the fee waiver administrator, but that is not required. They may assign this to anyone at the appropriate level at the school, meaning someone on the admin team. The fee waiver administrator may not be a student. Who must pay fees? Let's start with who never has to pay. No fee may be charged in kindergarten through grade 6 for any regular school day activity, including assemblies and field trips, or for any snacks, materials, textbooks, instructional or school supplies, or fundraising, such as dress down days. Students in a K-6 school cannot be required to provide their own supplies. Supplies such as paper, pencils, etc., needed in the regular classroom must be provided by the school. Except an elementary school may provide a suggested list of school supplies to be requested from parents or legal guardians, and the information to the parents must be clear and explicit that providing supplies for the student or class is voluntary. The list, if provided, must include very specific language as follows. Notice, the items on this list will be used during the regular school day. They may be brought from home on a voluntary basis. Otherwise, they will be furnished by the school. There is one other exception. 6th graders attending a middle school with 7th and 8th graders may be charged board-approved fees, and that's only if they're attending a school that also includes grades 7 or above. So who else should not pay fees? Students who qualify for a waiver should not pay fees if an application is submitted, evaluated, and approved. Waivers are required to be granted for 4 reasons. First, the student's family income qualifies under the level set by the state superintendent, and the parent provides verification in the form of income statements, pay stubs, or tax returns. Second, the student receives supplemental security income, and the parent provides benefit verification documents from the Social Security Administration. Third, the student's family receives temporary assistance for needy families, and the parent provides benefit verification from the Utah Department of Workforce Services for the period for which the fee waiver is sought, which may be in the form of an electronic screenshot of eligibility determination or status. Or fourth, the student is in foster care through the Division of Family and Child Services or is in state custody, and the individual seeking the waiver provides the Youth in Care Required Intake Form and School Enrollment Letter provided by the caseworker. Notwithstanding these 4 classifications, an LEA has the authority to grant waivers at its discretion for hardships not listed in the rule. So, who can pay fees? Fees may be charged in connection with an activity, class, or program provided, sponsored, or supported by a school for a student in a secondary school that takes place during the regular school day if this fee is on the board-approved fee schedule. Secondary is defined as 7th through 12th grades, with the exception of 6th graders in a secondary setting, for example, a 6th through 12th high school. A school may require a secondary student to provide school supplies. A school may require a student at any grade level to provide materials or pay for an additional discretionary project if the student chooses, and the course teacher approves a project in lieu of or in addition to a required classroom project. Fees may be charged in connection with any school-sponsored program or activity that does not take place during the regular school day, regardless of grade, if certain criteria are met. That is, voluntary participation and fee waivers still apply. Now let's answer the what questions. What is a fee? There are 4 components to the definition of a fee. According to the rule, a fee means, number 1, is something of monetary value, 2, is requested or required by a local education agency, 3, as a condition to a student's participation in an activity, class, or program, and 4, is provided, sponsored, or supported by a school. What other criteria is used to determine if a charge is, by rule, a fee? Fee means a charge, expense, deposit, rental, or payment, number 1, regardless of how it is termed, described, requested, or required directly or indirectly, number 2, in the form of money, goods, or services, and number 3, that is a condition to a student's full participation in an activity, course, or program that is provided, sponsored, or supported by an LEA. But wait, there's more. Fee also includes, number 1, money or something of monetary value raised by a student or the student's family through fundraising, 2, charges or expenditures for a school field trip or activity trip, including related transportation, food, lodging, and admission charges, 3, payment made to a third party that provides a part of the school activity, class, or program, 4, charges or expenditures for classroom, such as textbooks, supplies, or materials, and 5, charges or expenditures for school activity clothing. Take a second to think through some of the charges your family pays to the school. Now apply the rule's criteria. Most likely all charges are considered a fee. Let's talk about what is not a fee. Fee does not include a student fine specifically approved by the board for failing to return school property, losing, wasting, or damaging private or school property through intentional, careless, or irresponsible behavior, or as described in statute, or improper use of school property, including a parking violation. Fee does not include a payment for school breakfast or lunch. Fee does not include a deposit, that is a pledge securing the return of school property that is refunded upon the return of school property, or a charge for insurance, unless the insurance is required for a student to participate in an activity, course, or program. And fee does not include charges associated with a student's participation in a non-curricular club. There are a few different dates or wins associated with fees. First, the changes to R277-407 were made effective January 1st, 2020. A few clarifying changes to the statute which governs this rule were approved in the 2020 legislative session. The next date to be aware of is April 1st. This is the date each year for which the board must adopt the LEA's fee policy, fee schedule, and spend plan. The board should have had 2 public hearings prior to the adoption at regularly scheduled board meetings. This means in most cases, the latest a school should have all information prepared is February of each year. So best practice would suggest an initial hearing at the January's board meeting, a second hearing at the February meeting, and the adoption at the March meeting of each year. That way, there's not an issue with not being in compliance with the April 1st deadline. The annual Certificate of Compliance report is due October 31st of each school year. On October 1st of each year, the local board chair and charter school director will receive an email containing a personalized link to complete the Certificate of Compliance. The email is titled Utah State Board of Education School Year, whatever the school year is, Certificate of Compliance. The Certificate of Compliance confirms that each district, charter, and school understands and is abiding by the injunction, statute, and rule. This form must be completed even if the school did not charge any fees. Do not ignore or delete this email. There are a few new items beginning with the 2020-21 school year. The board must approve 3 things. Number 1, a per-student annual maximum aggregate fee for all courses, programs, and activities for the year. Number 2, a maximum fee amount per student for each activity. And number 3, a spend plan for the revenue collected from each fee charged. Let's take a detour and cover those new items. The annual maximum is the total that any one student may be charged if they were to participate in anything and everything they wanted to. This is not just totaling every fee you charge. For some schools, that could be $10,000. This is a thoughtful total that a family could expect to never have pay more than in a single year. Let's say if your school max was set at $1,000 and Jane wanted to do band, volleyball, and joined HOSA and went on to HOSA national competition in Florida. So even though her individual bill totals $1,490, the school's maximum is $1,000. And so that is all the family is required to pay for that school year. So what is the max per? This is the maximum per each fee that may be charged in a single year. Of course, you do not know all those details a year in advance, but you do have a basic idea of charges, like the typical number of students who participate, where the events are typically held, and if it requires transportation or an overnight stay, prior registration costs, etc. And you should use those numbers to plan the max. You do not have to charge the maximum. This is just a notice to parents and staff that the school will not charge more than that number approved by the board. Also new is a required spend plan for each fee charged. The plan should provide students, parents, and employees transparency by identifying the fee's funding uses. The fee's corresponding spend plan should include a list or a description of anticipated types of expenditures for the current fiscal year or as carryover for use in a future fiscal year, funded by the fee charged. So in our example, we have charged a student $20 for a high school art class and have listed that we will use $15 of it to fund 10 projects in the current year, and we'll hold $5 for items that we do not need to purchase each year, but will still be used and may need to be replaced in the future. You would list this type of detail for each fee. Keep in mind, students and parents who do not qualify for fee waivers may not be required to pay an increased fee amount to make up for or cover the costs of students and families who do qualify for fee waivers. In calculating the expense incurred by the LEA in relation to an individual student, the cost of providing fee waivers may not be considered. Schools may notify students and families that they may voluntarily pay an increased fee amount or provide a donation to assist in covering the costs of other students and families, but it is not required. Beginning with the 2021-2022 school year, a fee shall be equal to or less than the expense incurred by the LEA or school to provide for a student activity, course, or program. An additional fee may not be charged, or a particular fee may not be increased to supplant or subsidize another fee. A fee listed on the school fee schedule is the maximum amount which may be charged per student for a class or school-sponsored or supported activity, including uniforms, travel, and clinics, regardless of whether the activity is labeled as curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular. Again, the actual amount charged maybe less. Think about the main purpose of your budget and think about a structure that will best support that. How is this different from the prior year? Until 2021, you just must approve a maximum, and you do not have to know what the LEA is actually paying for each charge, as a lot of money has historically been dumped into a big pot, like a single registration fee which covers multiple charges. Starting in 2021, the fee charge cannot exceed the actual cost incurred for the school for that exact fee. Volleyball cannot support golf. Volleyball fees fund volleyball only, and those kind of ideas. And the maximums must be listed on the fee schedule. Beginning in the 2022-2023 school year, schools may not charge a fee for a textbook. A textbook fee may only be charged for concurrent enrollment or advanced placement courses, and those fees are subject to fee waivers. Remedial courses and credit recovery fees are subject to all school fee requirements. These fees shall be placed on the LEA's fee schedule and are subject to fee waivers. Additionally, beginning with the 2022-2023 school year, any instructional material provided for a student to complete a remedial course or credit recovery is considered a textbook and therefore shall be provided free of charge. There are several where requirements. First, let's discuss where the board must post notice of its public hearings prior to the April 1st approval. The rule reads, the board shall provide notice of the meetings, A, to the public in accordance with the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, and B, to parents and students using the same form of communication regularly used by the LEA to communicate with parents, including notice by email, text, flyer, or phone call. Each school has a different method of communicating with parents. For the 2 board meetings in which the fees will be discussed, parents must be encouraged to attend or to review and comment on the proposed policy, schedule, and spend plan. One school even invited parents to comment via a Google form to ensure parents had a say in the fee plan. Once the policies, schedules, and plan are adopted, copies must be included with the registration materials and provided to those that enroll after the initial enrollment period. The fee waiver administrator's contact information must also be available on the school's website with other school fee information and in student registration materials. Upon request, the school shall provide printed copies of school fees schedules, waiver policies, and documents to a parent or guardian who is unable or chooses not to access them through the LEA or school website. A school shall provide notice to a parent of each student attending the school of all current fee schedules and the opportunity for fee waivers prior to the student being registered for a course, activity, or program to enable the parent and student to make an informed decision prior to committing to the student's enrollment or participation. Besides having paper copies in the office, should they be requested, the school fees poster for your respective grade levels should be posted in a conspicuous place in the office near where a student or a parent would apply for a waiver. The state has translated the posters into various languages and has them available for printing at the school's fees website. A final thing to be aware of is when your LEA has more than 20% of the student or parent population who uses a single language other than English as their first language, then the school must publish the fee schedule and fee waiver policies in the language of those families. Additionally, the administrator of a school shall make arrangements for a school representative to meet personally with each student's parent or family and make available an interpreter for the parent to understand the fee schedule and waiver policies when the student or parent's first language is a language other than English and the LEA has not published the information in the parent's first language. So far, we have discussed the who, the what, the when, and the where. Now, let's talk about the very important why of fees. The purpose of this rule is to preserve equal opportunity for all students and to limit diversion of money and school and staff resources from the basic school program. Each local education agency's fee policy shall be designed to limit student expenditures for school-sponsored activities, including expenditures for activities, uniforms, clubs, clinics, travel, and subject area and vocation leadership organizations, whether local, state, or national. If preserving equal opportunity is not enough of a why, it's the law. In 1994, a Judge Rokich ruled on Pat Doe versus Utah State Board of Education regarding school fees. As you know, public schools are governed by FAPE, Free and Appropriate Public Education. The lawsuit filed by 17 defendants argued that family income should not be the determining factor in school participation. The judge based his ruling on the idea of free, universal public education and enacted the permanent injunction which guides the law and rule. Based on his ruling, what is now Utah Annotated Code 53G-7 was voted on and approved. Recently, HB 250 revised much of the school fees laws based on the recommendations of a task force created to analyze whether public schools and the USBE were following the injunction. After the legislative session passed HB 250, USBE revised R 277-407 to ensure all schools were following the judge's ruling and the premise of a free universal education. Ensuring parental wealth was not a determining factor in school participation. How? Use the state's resources. The fees team has put together a fantastic website. Here you will find an overview of the rule and associated injunction and statute. There are active links on this page. There is a page dedicated to the Certificate of Compliance, including a sample of the email you will receive. The next page is a list of resources, including an FAQ page. This page is added to regularly and has many helpful papers. There is a tab for forms, which are required to be printed and posted. Many of the forms have been translated into other languages. The state has also provided a model policy. In the model policy are explanations and things to consider. The training tab has YouTube videos of the trainings provided by the fees team live. Finally, a page with how to contact the individual on the fees team is listed. After you've become familiar with the web page, you should also become familiar with the rule. Read the rule, highlight the rule, become familiar with how each item relates to your school's circumstance. Use the model policy to guide your own policy. Here is a checklist of how to comply with the fees rule. You will have to do some work to complete this checklist. As such, I would suggest assigning the fee waiver administrator first. This person can then be the point of contact and expert on fees. They can advise the board and be the person to ensure that the school is in compliance. This person, of course, can delegate, seek support, and work with other school personnel to complete the checklist, but by having one person from the start will make the process a little bit smoother. This person may be the principal or the school director, but it doesn't have to be. Although it does need to be an employee, if it is not the principal, it could be the assistant or the office manager. Often if your school has an operations director, they're a logical person. Think through who at your school has the skill set to connect all the dots of the fees requirements. From the field, here are some how-to pro tips. Train your office staff. Make sure each person knows how to administer the fees program. When assessing fees and granting waivers, be consistent and fair. Be empathetic when thinking through discretionary waivers. Keep good records. Although applications and income documentation are not kept, a log should be maintained. Ensure the person collecting the fees and the business manager are accounting for the funds correctly. That is another training for another day. Review the Certificate of Compliance sample so that on October 1st you are aware of the data being requested and you will be prepared. Finally, when there is doubt, ask for help. The state's fees team is fantastic. You can email your questions or you can talk to one of the specialists at the state. They cannot provide legal advice, but they know the rules and the law and will help walk you through your situation to help you make an informed choice. During this training on schools' fees, we covered the 5 whys of Administrative Rule R277-407, entitled School Fees. We answered who is subject to this rule, who is in charge of the fees at your school, as well as who must pay and who does not pay. We explained what the definitions of what fees are and are not. We provided the dates for when the board must approve the policy, schedule, and plan, as well as when reports are due and when the rule changes in the coming years. We provided the information about where the policies, schedules, plans, and waiver information must be posted. We revealed why the rule is important, and as a bonus, we taught you how to comply with this rule, its associated statute, and permanent injunction. We wish you all the best in governing your school.